Hey guys, and welcome back to The Outer Rim. I'm Gabe Green, and today, with the help of my co-host, I'll be talking about the latest episode of The Bad Batch. And today, it is Michael Hoover from a Certain Point of View podcast. Welcome back, dude.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So as I said, today we'll be talking about Devil's Deal. Before that, I want to tell you guys, just if you prefer to listen to the audio version of this review, you can find that at the Franchise Fatigue podcast feed. If you don't want to stare at us all this time as we talk, you're welcome to go over there and listen to the audio version. So today's episode is episode 12.
11.
11? 11.
Yeah.
What he said. Called A Devil's Deal. This one was written by Tamara Beecher Wilkinson. She wrote the previous episode, Rampage, and it was directed by Stuart Lee. And there are a lot of returning cast members from the Clone Wars and Rebels here. You have Vanessa Marshall returning as a young Hera. There's Robin Atkins Downs as Cham Syndulla. Corey Burton, probably best known for voicing, what's his name? Count Dooku. He voices Gobi Glee. Phil Lamar as Orn Free Taa. And, of course, Chopper as himself, also known as Dave Filoni. Although at this point, I suspect they probably have a whole data bank of just grumpy Chopper noises that they can pull from. I don't know that they needed to have Dave Filoni come back in there and, mumble into the mic.
I thought the same thing.
So for this one, you have the Bad Batch is nowhere to be found. Instead, we are on Ryloth as the planet transitions from a very long war against Separatist occupation into an unsteady peace with Imperial occupation. Senator Orn Free Taa is all about the Empire, and even legendary freedom fighter Cham Syndulla is willing to give peace a shot. But Cham's comrade Gobi does not trust the Empire and begins to build a new resistance, to which he enlists Cham's daughter Hera. And ultimately, Gobi and Hera are caught by the Empire, which forces Cham to fight them to free his daughter. In the battle, Senator Taa is killed by the Empire. That should be clarified. And Cham and his wife Eleni are captured, but Hera escapes, presumably to call in the Bad Batch to come rescue them. So, dude, what were your thoughts on this one?
Oh man, I've been wrestling with this one, dude. And I actually just did a post on this on Twitter, but I love it when Star Wars makes me wrestle with itself. Some of my favorite things in Star Wars, notably The Last Jedi, I have had to really think and wrestle and why do I feel the way I feel? And try to see it from the perspective of the filmmaker and what they were going for, and watch it again and think about it and see it on a level deeper and all this stuff. And the more I thought about it, the more that I rewatched it, which I've watched it now 3 times just because I was like, I don't know what I think about this episode. I think this is going to be one of my favorites when all is said and done, to be quite honest.
Good, because it might be one of my least favorites.
One of your least favorites?
Of the series. Yeah. So good to have some balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, dude, I mean, I imagine I will understand your criticism. For me, I missed the Bad Batch a lot. It was very jarring, which is one of the reasons why I was questioning how I felt about it. It was really jarring, getting away from, these characters we've been growing to love all season long. And, I did feel, and I think it's a good thing, we go away from them. They are the cameo in this week's episode. And we don't get hardly any of them. I miss them a lot. And I think that just goes to show the character development they've done before. But that was one thing that I was wrestling with. How do I feel about it? This is the Bad Batch. And we had an episode where they were in it for 1 minute. And so that was something I wrestled with for sure. And I also am there's a lot of debate going on, with this whole Star Wars is a large universe, but it's treated like a very small universe. It's treated like a neighborhood kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I have concerns with that. This episode was the first time I've really, really thought about it with this show in particular. And I think it was because every time that we have had a cameo before this had something to do with it either enhanced or just showed something about the characters that we were learning about the Bad Batch. It had to do with them in particular. This time it was just it was just from the Ryloth point of view for the most part. And I wrestled with that. So but whenever I sat back and I thought about it and I rewatched it and all this stuff, it's clearly a part one of two, probably, I would imagine 2 or 3, but I have a feeling the Bad Batch is coming in the next episode. And I think Dave Filoni never does anything. I know he's not like the writer of this episode, but I know that he oversees all this stuff. He never does anything without being intentional about it. And to me, I really think that when I step back and look, there's a reason why we are focusing so heavily on the Ryloth perspective on this, and specifically the Syndulla family. I really think that going forward, I think in the next episode, I have a hard time even thinking about where I would rank this episode, because it's such a I really love the first half of that book, but I don't know about the second half yet. So like, it's hard to really put a finger on it. But yeah, man, I've had a lot of mixed feelings going back and forth. But I gotta say, when I'm watching it just for what it is, the story they're telling with the Syndulla family and seeing how the Empire is coming in and treating how they're treating this actual, this was a Republic ally. Ryloth was. They're treating them the same way that they treated the same way that they treated the Separatist colony last episode. They're all treated the same way, poorly. They're treated like it's peace, but it's actually oppression. And so like seeing that through the lens of the Syndulla family, and of course getting Hera back, I love that. And I really think that I will look back on this episode as a really high point for the season personally, but I had to wrestle with it, man. I really did.
Yeah. That gets to the conversation of the type of episode that this is where you'll have that episode where, like, sometimes like you'll have an ensemble show and you'll have the one episode that focuses on the one character, or in this case, focusing almost entirely on not new characters to us, but new characters for the show. Right. And it was interesting when I was thinking about, okay, what are some other episodes I would compare this to? And the two big examples I came up with was the episode Karen from Daredevil, I think it was season 3, where we go back into her past. Have you seen Daredevil?
I have not, dude.
Okay. Well, we go back into her past and kind of her backstory, one of the main characters of the show. And the other one was the episode in Stranger Things season 2 where we go off and Eleven goes and meets her band of punks and misfits. Yep. Both controversial episodes. I really like the first one. I don't at all like the second one. That's what I was thinking. And it's funny because I thought of that on my own, and then when I went to do the research for the episode, I found that Tamara Beecher Wilkinson, the writer of this episode, wrote that episode Karen in Daredevil. So like I guess that this is one of the things she does. She likes taking a show and writing episodes from a different perspective. I thought it was successful there, but also like the character Karen is one of the main I guess trio in Daredevil, so it's not like it's a full left turn. So I guess my issue with this episode is, number one, this is the Bad Batch. I like the Bad Batch. I want the Bad Batch. Last episode, one of my big issues was they separated the Bad Batch, so we didn't have the whole team together. So like I was missing Omega, and now we get another episode where they don't even matter to it. I'm like, I want my Bad Batch back. And I think this gets to more the nature of this show. This is very much like a Rebels and Clone Wars smushed together. You got kind of the character stuff of Rebels with the very political dynamic of a Clone Wars episode. But I don't know that the political musings and themes going on are as well explored and as interestingly looked into as they would be in the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars was really fearless in how crazy deep it would go into these ideas. And I feel like this one was a bit surface level, so it didn't intrigue me as much as a Clone Wars episode doing pretty much the same thing would. And the overall plot was it just kind of happened. I like the ideas of what's happening. It's cool. We're seeing all this stuff on Ryloth, young hair, all that. But I just didn't connect to it all that much. It kind of went in and I was like, okay, there's some cool stuff, but it didn't really do much for me. And it's so easy to pick on because it is that outlier, because it's so different. It's like, just just give me more Bad Batch. Isn't that hard?
Dude, I get it. I get it because it really did. Like that was absolutely one of the things that had me wrestling with it because I was like, this is the Bad Batch. How are you going to have an episode where they're the cameo? It doesn't make any sense to me. But when I really thought about it, I don't know, man. When I just sit back and I watched it again, and I just decided to watch the story as it was unfolding, and I am invested in Ryloth as a society, like as a planet, the people of Ryloth. I'm really invested in Cham Syndulla and Hera and dude, very much invested in Hera's mom who was in this episode.
I don't think that's a good bet, man.
I'm invested in her, and it's going to hurt me later. I know that, but I thought it was really cool how they brought her in and they showed, you know, because Hera's talked about her before. We now get to kind of see what happens to her, which is a good thing and a terrible thing.
I totally thought Crosshair was going to shoot her.
Yep, I thought that was going to happen too. Yeah.
So that's just going to happen next episode.
Yeah, I'm really dreading, but I gotta say, man, I don't know. Just when I'm watching just the story that was told in this episode, and I think about the fact that it's also not done. Like it's a story it's definitely a 2-part at least story that they're telling. It really does. I don't know. It's exciting to me. I am emotionally invested. So everything that happened did pull on my emotions big time. And then of course you get Chopper too. And that just makes me super happy always. But
yeah. I think it being the setup episode is also what kind of hurt it for me. Because like, I feel like the next episode, that's going to be where all the plot comes together. All the characters are set up. The Bad Batch is going to be involved. So I have a feeling I'll like the next one, but it's like, it's a lot of setup, but also with characters I don't care about as much. I mean, I love Hera, but young Hera is like, there's still a disconnect between her and what she becomes. You know, she's not the world's best space mom yet.
She just wants to be.
Yeah. It's some interesting things. You know, we have the idea of, you know, trying to the local government trying to cooperate as best as possible with an occupying force. You have Orn Free Taa, who's just in it for himself, and he'll collaborate with anyone. And Cham Syndulla. It was very interesting to see how bought into the notion of peace and imperial occupation Cham Syndulla was at the beginning, because his presence has always been this very belligerent, angry person who's been fighting, against just one enemy after another, and to see him like, no, I want peace, was just like, who are you? What have you done with Cham Syndulla? I guess this is what really burned him. But it's a nice little parallel between him and Hunter, where it seems the primary motivation for him wanting peace and for the end of this, long war is, he has his daughter. He wants to raise her in peace. And very similar with Hunter, he doesn't want to get involved because, he has this family he has to take care of now. And I wonder if maybe they'll have a nice, cool conversation next episode about that. And maybe both decide, to go for a cause.
Ooh, I like that a lot. I like that a whole lot, dude. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that seeing Cham in this way was also jarring because of how we've seen him in the past, but it makes total sense because for all the reasons you said, when he said that line, fighting takes a toll. My hope is that you won't have to live a life like mine. I was like, oh, not even close, man. Not even close. But it was totally understandable to me why he feels this way right now and why he's so willing to put his trust in the Empire. I feel like you can tell deep down he's questioning things and he's wondering, but at the same time he's really wanting to trust that they can trust the Empire because they've been fighting for so long, and Hera has only known war for her whole life pretty much, and he does not want that. So he wants peace for his family, and he's willing to kind of convince himself of the Empire's, all of their what they're motivated by. And I think the people around him are pointing out stuff, and he's not going to be able to shake it anymore. It's obviously he's not going to now. He's been captured by them, but he's clearly going to go through some character stuff in this next episode, and obviously his wife dying is going to be a part of it. Dude, I'm dreading next episode. I'm not gonna lie. I feel kind of like I did when we thought Wrecker was going to was that whole stressful lead up to Wrecker's the chip in Wrecker's head. I feel that way, and I know, but except it's worse here because I know she's gonna die. So I don't know, man. I'm emotionally invested, and I hate that.
Yeah, I get that. I just I don't know. Maybe the way it was told, it didn't. I want to to be invested in the family. It's shame it's Hera, but I don't know. It didn't catch me up that much, unfortunately. There's a lot of interesting things happening here. You have Orn Free Taa, who's like the official leader of the Senator, and I like that they're carrying over the conflict between him and Cham Syndulla from Clone Wars. And he's ultimately he's trying to going after personal power. Ultimately, he's just a tool for the Empire's own purposes.
He's the worst, man.
Yeah,
he's just the worst.
One weird little thing was at the end after Crosshair kills him, Rampart arrests him. He said, "Arrest these insurgents for the attempted assassination of Orn Free Taa." It's like, wait, not for the assassination of
Yeah.
I understand that Rampart organized this whole thing in hopes that Cham would assassinate him, and so he could get rid of the entire leadership of Ryloth and make the preferred leader of the people an outlaw. But it's but they did kill him, so why not just put it on him instead of, I don't know. Yeah. It was a weird line.
It was weird. I wondered the same thing when I was watching it on the second time and the third time. I had noticed when he shot, and I don't know, dude, I could be totally wrong here, but when I looked at it, it looked more like he got shot at the very end of his what are these called? The
Leku?
Yeah, the Leku. It looked like he got shot right at the end of it, right before it hits the head to me. I pause it in frame. It looks
still alive.
I wonder if he's just in critical condition or something like that.
They hauled him off on the hover cart.
Yeah,
it looked like he was completely covered in it.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. The episode really treats him like he's dead.
Yeah, it does. It's very weird. It is weird.
Yeah. Another thing is Captain Hauser is intriguing to me. He's a clone from the Clone Wars. He's got his unique haircut. He's taken his helmet off. He's personable. And he's got the painting on the armor. As far as we can tell, Order 66 kind of skipped him, which is intriguing. No reference is made to it. I would guess this is some kind of Imperial ploy to keep Syndulla's loyalty, because he's fought alongside these clones for many years. And if you noticed, they're doing a lot of stunning in this episode. They're fighting. They'll shoot some of them, but when they don't need to shoot someone, they'll go and stun the clone. There's still some of that regard that they've built up over the years of fighting as comrades left. So I wonder if the Empire just can they choose clones? We're not going to Order 66 you because you're more useful to us as an ally. Or they didn't seem too concerned about that elsewhere.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It is really weird, or maybe I don't know. It's confusing. It's one of the things about this episode that I both am kind of confused about, but also love. I love seeing, it was really great seeing a clone who was autonomous. He had autonomy. He had his own hairstyle. He took off his helmet. He was not like a robot like the rest of them, they've lost all of their autonomy. But this guy did not. And he also seemed empathetic and sympathetic to, when he said she's just a child, and he very blatantly feels like a real clone that we would know from the Clone Wars, like Rex would, or like Echo or whatever. It feels very different, or even like the Bad Batch, if he feels very much like them. And to see Rampart interacts with him throughout the episode, it's not like he's hiding himself or anything. He's out in the open. So it is confusing. But it's
is he going to become an ally in next episode and then they'll flip the switch on him? That would be horrible.
That could happen, or he becomes an ally and he dies. He's assassinated for it. I don't know. I don't know what's coming, but I also thought on the positive side, what if he does join? He becomes an ally, and what if he goes and joins like the budding rebellion, goes with Rex wherever Rex is, and like all that stuff that could happen too.
Or he just makes the choice that a lot of the military did, and like, I'm going to stand with the Empire.
He could do that too. It's a mystery, man. I love it. That's one of the things. It's like, it's tough because it's clearly a part one, and that's the danger of part ones, especially nowadays when we're all so trained to binge.
Yeah.
It's tough to have a part one of a 25-minute show, and then you have to wait for part two for an entire week. You can't see the full picture. You don't know how to really think of how this episode is. But when I think about it, like, there's a lot more coming, and I think about what just this episode had. I really do. I like Hauser. I hope he doesn't die. Also, there could be some real death in this next episode. Yeah, man. I don't know.
Last thing I wanted to mention was this scene with the actual Bad Batch scene in the Bad Batch episode. They're running guns for Sid, which is a great little way to bring them in. Apparently, Sid has a lot of contacts in the fledgling rebellion, and that was kind of my favorite scene. It's like, people I like. And it was lovely seeing Omega get to interact with a child, someone her own age, and just no funny business. I'm watching you. They're just adorable together.
Yeah, man. I love the scene too. Obviously, when they showed up, first of all, I love when they showed up and Wrecker is carrying the gun cases out of the cockpit like like someone would be carrying two backpacks. It's nothing to him. And you see them later pulling the crates, and they're like huge and super heavy. They couldn't do that, but Wrecker's just like carrying them like they're just these little backpacks. I thought that was great. Just because I love Wrecker. But yeah, I really loved this scene. Particularly, like you said, Omega and Hera together. Really cool to think that they've met, and like, I like the thought that I like the idea that they have met now, and like, going back and watching Rebels later, I'll have that in the back of my mind, like somehow she knows Omega. But I really, really love the scene in the cockpit where Omega was like, no, Tech won't let me fly until I've memorized the name of each instrument and what it does or whatever. And Hera was like, told her that flying is not just that. It's not just memorization, but it's also a feeling. And
what kind of feeling?
Yeah. Did you know that flying's a feeling? But I really love the part when she was like, this, when we're not being shot at and we're not being, we're not on the run, this is my room. And just the way the delivery there. And, Hera has this sweet moment where she's like, you live on a starship? This is my dream. And I'm just like, I just love seeing these seeds planted, or that have already been planted. Hera has only dreamt of this for her entire life. And knowing what comes later, it makes me very happy. But ultimately, I do just love the little dynamic between Omega and Hera. I thought that whole thing was really great.
Mm-hmm. And one larger canon thing I noticed, that the Imperials are mining dunium on Ryloth. And like, if you've read like the Thrawn novels, like they're all about like the logistics of building the Death Star. So like they could be laying little cannon seeds for for that horror coming in the future. Yep. Anything at all you wanted to mention about this episode before we head out?
Other than what I had mentioned earlier, honestly, I just think as a whole, I just want to say I'm really glad that I wrestled with this episode. Sometimes we can easily watch something and just decide, I don't like that one or whatever. And sometimes you wrestle with it, you still don't like it. That's how it lands. Rise of Skywalker for me, big time. Wrestled with that one many times, but I generally, it does at least help me appreciate, and sometimes it even helps me love something. And so I would just say wrestle with it. if it doesn't land right with you, and you may end up loving it if you dive deeper into it. Also, just on a smaller note, specifically, the music in this episode was awesome because they brought back a familiar theme. It's very reminiscent of, like, it starts like a Leia theme, but
what was that? I
that
noticed at one point. I forgot about it.
I'm trying to think of the exact theme it is in the original trilogy, but it's used quite a bit. Specifically, I feel like I notice it when they're flying, and which makes sense because every time they played it in this episode, Hera was dreaming of flying or whatever.
Yeah,
and so
I remember getting Leia vibes.
But it was it was very much a original trilogy score, but they kind of adapted it just a little bit. But it really, I loved it a lot. I got chills just thinking about it right now. So I love the Kiners are doing a great job with the score the whole season, and the visuals. Holy crap, man. The visuals in this show, every episode.
I love what you said about wrestling with that thing. Like, it doesn't mean you have to like it, but usually if you put some thought into it, you'll get past the knee jerk. I just want to go online and scream about it. Like, you don't have to like everything, and there will be things that they just don't work. But it's rarely for a lack of effort on the part of the artist. There's usually always something interesting being attempted. A lot of times it doesn't work, and that's fine. But like, art is so much more rewarding if you just put forward like that little bit of step. Like I said, like, I hated that. Okay, why did I hate that? And if it's such a bad choice, why would the artist choose to do that? Like, just like so much stress in the Star Wars fandom could be solved by people just putting a couple seconds more thought into it.
I think that's what it is for me too. It's like sometimes what I have found is whenever I dig and whenever I wrestle with something, generally I don't necessarily love it every time, but at the very least I see what they're doing, and it might not work for me, but it might really work for me because I did a little extra work. I usually get, with The Last Jedi in particular, I liked it coming out of the theaters. Every time I've watched it since then, I've loved it more, and to the point where it's top 3 Star Wars movie for me. It's way up there, and I'm a defender of it now. And much like yourself, but I mean,
the first viewing, I was like, I don't understand. I have so many feelings. I have anger. I have love. I've been torn apart.
Rian Johnson wanted us to wrestle with that movie. We're not supposed to feel great through that entire movie. We're supposed to wrestle like Luke did, like so many, like Rey was, like all these characters were. And so, like, I just kind of take that mindset going into everything I watch now. It's like, that didn't really work for me. Was it because of my expectations? A lot of times it is. It's because we expect something and we get something totally different. But if we watch it again, we might actually really like it with our expectations gone, and we just look at it for what it is.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to plug The Outer Rim, a Star Wars group on Facebook where we're dedicated to positive and constructive conversation like that. You also have a Star Wars group, don't you?
Yeah, we have a certain point of view discussion group. It's kind of connected with our podcast. We release an episode a week. Right now, we're just covering the Bad Batch. After that, we like to do like deep dives, ranking episodes, all sorts of fun stuff. So check it out. A Certain Point of View podcast.
After The Outer Rim, of course.
Of course, after The Outer Rim.
And again, if you wanted to listen to the audio, you can go to my podcast, Franchise Fatigue. And then, of course, like this video and subscribe to the channel. And we will be back next week with episode 12. See you then.